Welcome back everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at a couple of games which I played in the late Title Tuesday, today, February 25th of the great year 2025. Now we're going to pick it up going into the 8th round. Going into the 8th round, there was one player on a perfect score with 7 out of 7. That player was Jan-Krzysztof Duda, and then there were 3 players behind him with 6.5 points out of 7, and those 3 players were the 5-time world champion Magnus Carlsen, yours truly, and Fabiano Caruana, currently the number 4 ranked player in the world. So with so many great players up at the top, in this 8th round, I'm playing with the black pieces against Fabiano, while Magnus plays against Duda. So I'm playing with the black pieces, and the game starts out with e4, and I decide to play the move e5. Fabiano goes knight f3, we get knight c6, knight c3, and now I play the move knight f6. Now here Fabiano plays this move h3. This move is an interesting sideline here. White can also play d4 or a3 if you're looking for other options, but this is something which the famous Mexican grandmaster Jose Martinez Alcantara has played quite a bit. So after h3, I play the move bishop to b4. Actually, I think Jose is from Peru, but that is my mind slipping. So I play bishop b4. We get the move bishop d3 from Fabiano. I play d6. We get a3. And here I play the move bishop c5. Now in this position, Fabiano plays the move bishop c4. And we reach a very peculiar transposition. After the move a6 and d3, this is actually turned back into a Gucci piano here with the bishops on c4 and c5. The normal way that you would reach this position would be in this position after move 2. You get bishop c4, bishop c5, d3, knight f6. You get a move like a3, d6, knight c3, a6, and then the move h3. So we transpose back into a Gucci piano here after a6 and d3, and it's a very strange situation. So here I play the move bishop to e6, and now we get to move castles. Now, one of the big drawbacks to the way Fabiano has played this position is that when you put the knight on c3, white can no longer fight for the center. Normally what white wants to do is play for something like c3 followed by d4, for example, to try and create this big white center. So back to the game. I go bishop e6, Fabiano castles, I play h6, we get bishop e3, and here I castle my king. Now at this point, this is the classic mirror mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all. As you can tell, both sides are playing copycat. Now, of course, it makes total sense that we're playing copycat, because in the recent freestyle event in Germany, we were actually playing very similar openings, Fabiano and myself, so it seems pretty fitting. So here we get the move b4 from Fabiano. I trade the bishops, and now I play the move knight d7. Now, once again, I could have played the move b5 here, and after takes, we still have a symmetrical position, but I wanted to go for something a little bit different. So I decided to play the move knight d7, Fabiano plays knight d5, and now I play the move knight e7. Here we get the move bishop to b3. Fabiano, of course, could have traded the knights and the bishops here, and this position is very, very balanced after knight to h4. Computer gives black a very minute advantage, but in my opinion, this is very close to being a draw. Instead, Fabiano plays bishop b3. Now, also keep in mind, one of the differences, chess has all sorts of different levels, and one of them is that when you're playing in a tournament like Title Tuesday, more often than not, you have to take some liberties. You need to try and play for the win. You cannot make a lot of draws, and so I think some of the decisions that we're about to see from both Fabiano and myself are heavily influenced by this, as don't forget, we are both half point behind Jan-Krzysztof Duda. So we got the move bishop takes d5, and here Fabiano takes, and now I play the move f5. Now, as I mentioned during my live stream of this game while I was on kick, in a normal world, I would have played c6, forced the trade of everything, and just played this position and been like, okay, probably going to be a draw, very, very solid, but the show goes on. Instead, I decide, you know what, I need to try to play for the win, so I go for an imbalance, because when I take, Fabiano takes, and I play the move f5, you have 2 knights versus a bishop and a knight, and it's unclear whether white is going to be able to use these central pawns to create some threats. So we get c4. Here I play the move f4. This is a move that probably is a little bit dubious. I actually kind of like the computer suggestion of just very quietly moving the king away. One of the reasons this move makes sense is, say you play knight f6 and white goes c5, just to illustrate the point. White can try to go for something like knight takes e5 followed by a d6 check, opening up the center of the board. Instead, I play the move f4 right away, and now my idea is simple. I play f4 because if white plays e4, like in the game, now after g5, this is very much like a king's Indian, and if white were to play a move like pawn takes, rook f4, and queen d2, now my knight is jumping to f5, it can go to g3 or d4. I also have very straightforward development here, for example, by bringing the queen and then the rook, and you get the legendary triple stack. So After f4, Fabiano plays e4, I go g5, c5, and now I play the move king g7. Now, apparently what I should have played here was the move knight g6. I was actually very afraid of this move c6 here, but the computer kind of laughs at it. So I go king g7, we get rook c1, I play knight g6, and now we get the move c6. And already here, I was a little bit unsure of what was going on. Now, keep in mind, in this situation, we're both a half point behind Duda, so I'm trying to play for something which is imbalanced. And the great thing about this position is that it is very much like a King's Indian, where I'm trying to push my p on the king side. So I take, Fabi takes, I go knight f6, we get queen e2, and now I play the move knight to h5. Now, apparently here the move that I should have played was g4. I actually rejected this because I thought after takes, rook c1, rook f7, and something like queen c2, I actually was a little bit worse. However, I do have this move knight to e3 here, and now with ideas like knight to h4 down the road, maybe rook g7, black is much better with this bastion on e3 combined with the connect 4. So instead, I play knight h5, trying to jump with my horse to g3. Fabi plays rook c1, rook f7, d4, and now I play the move knight g3. Fabiano continues with the queen d3, and now I play this move queen to f6. Now, computers, of course, are ridiculous at the game of chess. What I should have played was the move h5, but I thought that after pawn takes pawn, if I were to take, white gets d6 here, or even rook takes g6, and white is crashing through. And so I'm trying to play quickly here, and I go queen f6 instead. Now, this is a move which is all in for me because I'm giving up this pawn on c7, but I'm arguing that none of the stuff on the queen side matters because I'm going to play h5 and g4 and use these knights and the pawns to try and attack the white king. So Fabiano plays bishop d1, I go h5, of course, we get pawn takes, takes, and now we have the move bishop f3. Here I trade the rooks, I go king to f6. At this point, as you can tell, white is actually in a lot of trouble in spite of being up a pawn on the queen side because there are many threats here. If white were to play a move like queen takes a6 here, black can go g4, and after takes, I simply can play this move rook to h8 with the idea of rook h1, there's queen d4, there's queen a1. All these different ideas are too much, and white is going to lose the game. So Fabi plays queen c3 instead, and now I trade the queens, and here I play the move rook g8. Now, what's funny is in this position, g4 is actually close to winning, because if white were to take the free pawn, after the move rook to h8, there's a very unusual mating net here. If white plays, let's just say a4, I can go check, king f2, and rook to f1, checkmating the white king on f2. It simply has no squares available. If white were to play the move bishop to h3, trying to stop the infiltration, then I have knight to e2, forking the king and the rook, and after king f2 and knight takes rook, black simply wins the game. So g4 actually would have been stronger, but again, it is a blitz game. I'm trying to play faster. I'm already at 30 seconds, but I want to keep the pressure going, so I play the move rook g8, aiming for g4. Fabiano plays a4, g4, and now he plays the move bishop d1. And here I make a very serious error when I play this move pawn takes pawn. Now, in this position during my live stream, I actually felt like this had to be very good for me. I had to be winning, and I am in fact winning if I play the move knight takes e4, because after rook c4 and king e5, their ideas of pawn takes pawn, their ideas of f3 as well, and white's king on g1 combined with the lack of a passed pawn here on the queen side simply means that I have too much counterplay. But instead, I play the move pawn takes pawn, and I completely overlook the move which Fabiano finds, which is bishop to f3, or I say overlooks, I thought it was bad. Obviously, you guys can tell that I'm doing this recap right after the game, since my analysis is not 100% spot on. So I actually thought pawn takes pawn was a mistake because of bishop f3, which cuts off all the threats, but in fact, it's still very good for me. I play pawn takes pawn, and now Fabiano plays the move rook to b3. Now, this move is an error because in this position, I can win the game on the spot if I find the very obvious move, knight to f1 here, with the idea of knight to d2, and it's all over. Reason it's all over is if white takes here, I can play this move knight to e3, and after rook b2 and f3 here, I will win this bishop on g2, and the rest is very basic. Additionally, if white plays a move like b5 here, for example, I can simply trade, and after takes, I go h4 with this idea of h3, b6, h3, followed by h2, and it's the same thing. If white ever takes, knight e3, rook b2, and now I have h3 or f3, both moves are completely winning. But again, it's a blitz game. I'm only human, so I play the move h4, which to me feels very logical and natural because I'm trying to push h3 instantly. Fabiano plays king takes pawn, and this is the final nail in the coffin, after which there is no coming back. Now, Fabiano could have played bishop takes pawn to keep the game going, and after knight takes e4, let's just say a move like king h2, rook g3 here, black is probably winning, but I would still have to find these moves, and it's not clear-cut whether I would. So Fabiano plays king takes pawn instead. Now I go knight takes pawn check. We get king h2, and I play knight to d2, forking the rook and the bishop. We get rook d3. I swap, go king e5, and here at least it is a very simplified position. I have one extra pawn on the board, but also with the active king and the very easy white pawns being targets here, there is no hope for Fabiano to save the game. So he plays move b5. I trade, I go rook b8, rook b3, takes, king h3, king c4, rook f3, and now I play the move rook takes pawn. Fabiano takes, and I go king c3. And here Fabiano plays king takes h4, which loses instantly, but even after rook to f3, I can simply go king c4, check, king c5 here, and after rook takes h4, remember white can never take because of rook b4. After rook takes h4 here, I can simply play the move d5, king g2, rook to b8, king f2, rook to e8, cutting off the king by a row, and then I just move the king and the pawn up the board, and it is a technically winning endgame. Fabiano instead plays king takes h4. I play rook to b4, and in this position Fabiano resigns the game because after the rook trade I'm simply winning here. I run my king closer, and after king d3, king goes either way. You go this way, escort the pawn up the board, and if white goes to e1, same thing. King c2, escorting the d pawn up the board as you cover all the squares, and you win. So I get a very, very big win here after rook to b4 against Fabiano in the 8th round. That takes me to 7.5 points out of 8. In round number 9, I would draw against the leader, Jan-Krzysztof Duda, who was actually on a perfect score after beating Magnus Carlsen. So this sets up a big matchup in the 10th round where I am playing with the white pieces against none other than Magnus Carlsen, who I played quite recently in the Chessable Masters, which was part of the Champions Chess Tour. So to set the scene here, I am on 8 points out of 9 with 2 draws, and meanwhile I'm playing Magnus, who's on the same score, and then I have Duda, who's a half point ahead of me with 8.5 points out of 9. So I have the white pieces round 10. Let's dive into it. So I open with the move b3. Now, when I played Magnus in the recent Chessable Masters, I also played b3. Main reason behind this is simply it's an easy opening to play. It dodges theory, but you're also not showing any major preparation, which I might want to show in some tournaments like Norway Chess down the road. So I go b3, we get e5, I play bishop b2, knight c6, and now I play the move c4. Now e3 is the main move here, but black can try to build a big black center here with d5. Black can also play lines like a6 or knight f6, and I wanted to go for something fresh, so I play the move c4. Magnus plays g6, I go e3, bishop g7, knight f3, and here we get the move d6. Now in this position, I play the move knight c3, we get knight f6, and I go for d4. Now, I could have also played this move d3, followed by bishop e2 and castles. It's a very slow, very quiet game here. All the pieces, all the pawns remain on the board, but I wanted to go for something that was a little bit more aggressive. So I play the move d4. Magnus castles, bishop e2, and now he plays the move rook e8, and here I decide to trade the pawns on e5. Now when I went for this line, this was based on a big miscalculation, because after takes, I thought that I could play the move knight to b5 here, hitting the pawn on e5 with my bishop and knight, but also hitting the pawn on c7. But here after the move knight to e8, the knight guards the pawn, the knight and the bishop guard this pawn here on e5, and actually black is a little bit better, as you can see. So I was somewhat horrified to reach this position and realize that knight b5 isn't okay, but I kept my wits about me and I played the quiet move a3 here, trying to stop knight to b4 where the knight can jump to start forking everything. So I go a3, we got to move e4, and this is the start of Magnus going the wrong direction. I suspect Magnus knew that I had made a mistake, and so he wanted to go for something very aggressive to try and punish me, but e4 is not it. Because after knight to d2, I attack this pawn on e4, Magnus goes bishop f5, I play h3, he goes h5, of course, trying to stop me from playing g4 to harass the bishop. I castle, and now we get to move h4. Now in this position, Magnus probably should have played the move knight to e5. No doubt he's worried about something like knight to b5 here, attacking the knight and the pawn, or maybe even something like knight to f1 and knight g3, but this would have been best. Instead, he plays h4, and this is actually a very serious error, because now I go g4, and after end peasant, I recapture, and black has a huge issue, because the knight and the bishop here are guarding the pawn on e4, but I'm always threatening now to go g4 and kick this bishop, which guards this pawn on e4, so black has some serious problems. So Magnus goes knight to e5. Now I play the move g4, we get bishop d7, and here I play the move g5, kicking the horse away so that I can now capture this pawn on e4 for free. We get knight to e8, And this is a move which I actually was really surprised to see during the game. I was sure Magnus would play knight h5, takes, and bishop f5 here. It's still very unclear. White's a little bit better here, but honestly, the moves that the computer suggests, which are a4, which I would never play, or even bishop takes h5, kind of unclear whether I would find this after takes. Knight f2, white is better, but black has the two bishops here, and the show goes on. So I was kind of happy to see Magnus play knight e8, because now after takes, bishop f5, I can simply play the move h4 here, and now I'm protecting the pawn on g5. I eliminate a weakness. For example, say I were to trade and go rook d1, this would be a big mistake, so after takes, I lose this pawn on h3. So that's why I was very happy that I could play h4. I guard the pawn on g5, I eliminate the weakness, and now I'm free to try and play in the center of the board. So Magnus goes c6, I trade, I play knight to f2 here. Idea behind this move is simple. I want to go rook d1, but I also don't want to leave this knight under attack. So we get knight c7. I play knight e4, Magnus goes knight e6, and now I play the move rook d1. We get the swap, and at this point, the dust has settled where we're in an endgame. I have one extra pawn, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Black is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here, technically speaking, I should be winning, and I'm also up 30 seconds on the clock. So Magnus trades the bishop for the knight. He goes knight to d7, and now I trade the bishops, and here I play the move knight d6. Magnus goes knight d8, and now I play the move bishop to g4. We get knight e5, and here I go bishop c8, trying to undermine the pawns on the queen side. We get b6. I go king to e2, important move, because say I play a4, for example, there's always the threat of knight to f3, and suddenly both of these pawns are seriously weak, and I'm probably going to lose my material advantage. So I play king to e2, stopping this knight to f3 idea, and now Magnus plays king f8. I go bishop h3 here. Idea is quite simple. Say I were to play b4 and king e7, knight would have to go back to e4 or something like c5, and that's not what I want. So when I play bishop h3, now if black goes king e7, I have knight c8 check, forking the king and the pawn, and at this point with two extra pawns now, I simply should be easily winning. So Magnus plays move a6 here. I play a4, again trying to create this weakness on b6, because if white goes king e7, now I win this one. So Magnus plays c5, I go knight c8, knight c6, takes, and here we get the move king e7. I play bishop c8, a5, bishop b7, knight b4, and now I play the move bishop b4. Now at this point, I have two extra pawns. I have an extra b pawn, I have an extra e pawn, but there are some slight issues here from the standpoint that the pawns on the queen side are fixed. You'll notice that I cannot create a passed pawn here, just to give you an idea of what I mean. If I could ever go b4 and black takes, I can create a passed c pawn, or if black takes, I can create a passed a pawn. But with this knight on b4 here, I can never use the 3-on-2 advantage, and also the pawns on the king side are fixed here as well, and I can't push my e-pawn up the board easily. So there are some technical issues, but the great thing here is I'm up 40 seconds on the clock, and I have all the time in the world to try and figure it out. So here we get king d6, I play knight c8, king d7, knight a7, king e7, knight b5, and now Magnus plays the move f6, trying to get rid of the king side pawns. Here I play the move pawn takes pawn, we get takes, and I play knight c7. This is actually a mistake here. The move that wins instantly is knight to d6 here, because the idea is simply to go to the b7 square, because from b7 I can hit both of these pawns at the same time, and black actually simply can't guard both the pawns. Instead, I go knight c7, a little bit superficial, because if black goes g5, I trade and go knight e6 to win the pawn on c5. So Magnus plays the move knight f7, and now I play knight a8, knight d6. We get the move bishop b1, and here Magnus plays knight c6. I go knight b6, trying to go for knight d7 to fork the king and the pawn again. Magnus plays knight e5, knight d5, king e6, check, king f6, and here I play the move king f2. Magnus goes knight c8, and now I play this move knight to d3 here. At this point, I don't know for sure that this is a winning position when I play knight d3, but what I do know here is that I have a 3-on-2 on the queen side. After takes, for example, I have a 3-on-2, so at some point I can try to create a passed pawn here. I have a bishop spying the pawn, so I have multiple wide peepos here with these 3 pawns that can all go up the board. So from a technical standpoint, I assume that this must be winning. So that's why I play knight d3, Magnus trades, goes knight d6, I play king g3, and here Magnus Carlsen simply oversteps the time limit here. He flags, he only had 1 second or thereabouts, and he loses the game. Now, the show goes on. Let's just say black were to play knight f7. After king f4, g5 takes, bishop f5, knight f7. I can now play the move bishop h3, and after knight to d6, I can sort of slow play it here with bishop g4. If black moves the knight, my king starts to run to the queen side here, where I'm going to gobble all these pawns and win the game. And if black goes king e7, then you yield the e5 square. I once again run my king over, and this is just a very basic win. So even though Magnus flags after king g3, the result was not in doubt here. I would have won the game. This was a very, very big win for me. Beating both Fabiano and Magnus set me up to win the event. But unfortunately, in the final game, I would have a slight mishap and lose to Samuel Sevian, meaning that I would only get 4th place in Title Tuesday. But nonetheless, beating Fabiano and Magnus, proving that I could compete with these guys even after having a really, really bad early Title Tuesday, makes me very happy. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this recap of rounds 8 and rounds 10 of the late Title Tuesday today, February 25th of the great year 2025. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back with some more recaps and great content in the coming days. So I hope you guys enjoyed it and have a great rest of your evening. See you soon. Bye.